Welcome everybody, I am SocioPsycho and this is Mob Reviews, and today we will be looking at Fearless Fantasy. This was created by Enter Skies, available for PC. It is an adventure game, combat 2D, turn-based strategy, sort of like a JRPG, but just in the combat element. As you'll see as we get into the game, doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but what does it mean? And we will find out, starting with the options menu. Now when we go in here, you do have different music and effects volume. It's nice that they have this. The effects are okay, they're decent, but the music is what really stands out. The music in this game is done terrifically. It helps propel a great atmosphere during the story elements of the game and also the combat elements. It really ties everything in and well together. Now in the display options, there is not a lot, as you can see there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the game is bad. Full screen has been running at 1920 by 1080, and it's been running at 60 frames per second. I've had no clipping, crashing, or tearing of any sort, any performance issues. The only issue I've had is a small dialogue bug in the voice acting where it's gotten screechy, but that's a small bug isolated in one incident, so I'm sure eventually that will get fixed. The game looks decent for what it is, and you can't expect too much, but it does what it has and needs to do quite well, in a very unique and possibly weirdish art style that may not be for everybody. Now you have two modes in the game. You have survival mode and story mode. Survival mode is exactly what it sounds like. You take your team of warriors and fight against different categories of troops in a how long can you last before you're defeated. It takes in how far you've gotten on the different zones. Have you beaten 14 rounds of monsters or only 2? And how long did it take you to do that? As there is a combat total time element integrated into the game. Now this isn't anything over extrapolated, as there's not a leaderboard system or anything else. So when it comes to trying to better your score on a time personal basis, it's exactly that, personal. It's not anything that's really in-depth or capable of comparing and competing against, but it is there. As you can see in the top left corner, the total time is time elapsed whenever the timer progressed during battle. This is an objective measurement of your effectiveness in the game, how fast can you beat the game, collect all stars. In most RPGs, or almost all, or definitely in the older ones, you have different zones and there's travel times to these different zones. And there's a collection of time it takes you to get to the end of the game. It's sort of an incentive to replay the game as fast as possible. And you have a star system in the game. The star system doesn't actually do anything specific, it's just for the own personal characteristics of, hey, I got 3 stars, look at me, mommy, put it on the fridge. So let us go into the skills and gear. As we bring up the upgrades page, you do have 3 characters. Now you have Leon, which is pretty much your basic melee fighter and damager, Alice, which is ranged damager and / healer, and Vaughn, which is a tank damager style. They're all kind of squished all in there, but it works, it's balanced out. Now as you also see here, you have the level system, and it's very simplistic. After each battle you gain experience, and they all level up when your total level increases, and they get 1 point in stats and 1 point in skills to put where you want them to. It doesn't have individual experience points, and that's perfectly fine. They level up as a team based off of the bar in the bottom. Now as you can see, there's damage, return times, that's what we were talking about in the total times, the ability for them to react and act to a situation, the health, and the energy. Now below you have in the skill systems, each of these abilities cost a certain amount of energy. So it's imperative that you have enough energy built up onto the character if you want to be productive later on during the battle. Now there are ways to regain energy or mitigate damage. If we look at Alice, she has Shield of Cover. Now this will reduce damage taken by all characters for 1 to 5 attacks. And we also have ranged attack against all enemies. Other allies restore some energy for each enemy hit. So there are options within the game to help with the synchronicity of the abilities to work across each other. So if you mitigate all the damage taken for everybody, and then you have Vaughn, who tanks the next 1 to 5 attacks, he will be taking the damage that other people have been taking, and he'll be taking only half of it. So it's just so beautiful. Now there is also the shop option, and the shop is basically a categorization of being able to buy either food or energy, and then you can use those in combat, which will take a turn of the hero that you decide to use. Now there's also the availability to resurrect. Your healer/ranger, Alice, does have a capability to resurrect somebody, but if she's down, well, what good is that going to do her? She can't resurrect herself, but with a revival grenade, you can save her. There's also stun bombs, which will work pretty well against larger enemies, or groups of enemies, I should say. All heroes become immune to ranged attacks for 1 turn. So there are options and choices. And you have here Ironhide, all heroes become immune to melee attacks for 1 turn. You have the choice and availability, and as you can notice as I've been scrolling over these, whether they do different damage or heal for different amounts, the cost never really seems to be overly eccentric. The game doesn't require you to really overplay too much to either buy energy or food, and it gives you plenty of money, so you don't even have to worry about it. You could literally be the worst person who ever has played the game, still love it and have the sensational capability to want to play it more, and you'll still have plenty of money. That's perfectly fine. In the weapons category, as you can see, the weapons definitely differentiate between the passive abilities that they have, such as 15% chance to wound, 12% chance to poison. So as you can see, there are variables on these weapons. So while you can buy them, and this is one annoying part in the weapon category that I don't like as a sort of have to collect all of them, have to have it all. You can buy the $300 bow, but when you buy something you don't actually own it and it doesn't go into your inventory, and if you rebuy it again and you're gonna lose money, you sell your old bow, and it's just annoying because you have to buy it again and you don't feel like, So yeah. Gadgets are pretty much exactly that. As you can see on our different characters here, if you had to upgrade or sell a gadget, let's go buy the 10 strength gadget, and now I want to buy the 12 strength, well I can't, so I have to sell this one. The different gadgets do apply only to certain characters, and there's not a way to tell that, which is slightly annoying. And it's saying again how you have to buy and sell versus just buy, have, and then right click to equip or de-equip. It's just a little bit tedious, but not anything really annoying, as you can figure out which ones your characters may want as you progress through the game. Just slight inconvenience, but again, like I said, the choices that you have available aren't so large, and the money that you gain is so large that, while it's an inconvenience, it's not one that's really detrimental to the game. Now, before we go into the actual combat, we're going to talk briefly about the story, because the story is done actually pretty well. And if it did not have the story, I wouldn't even be recommending this game. Truth be told right there. Yeah, the combat's good, but the story is what ties it together. It has a decent story, great voice acting, and it propels. As you can see, there are different chapters, bone crosses. These not only resemble bosses, but they will have cutscenes tied into them, and it's done very well. While the cutscenes may be minimalistic in what the budget allowed, which is perfectly fine because it fits the theme great, they've done it just fine. You don't need $100,000 bazillion. Yeah, you heard me. That's a real figure. To make an amazing cutscene. And they did it just fine. And I'll let you sample it for yourself.
You're late as usual, Leon.
Got into a little mess. Met this troublemaker.
Hi, I'm Alice.
And she's a princess.
Princess? It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Royal Highness. I'm Vaughn.
She's supposed to marry King Zola.
Oh, the tyrant.
Yeah, Alice here is going to show us where the monster is, help us kill it, and save the world. No biggie.
What? I'm not going anywhere near him.
Have you seen the beast, Your Highness? Is it as big as they say?
He showed me where he keeps it. But I'm not going back.
Your Highness, we are the finest bounty hunters in the land. I assure your safety.
No. Hey! Wait! He left a message.
Hello, Princess Alice. You naughty snake, come here. Go ahead, keep running, and I'll release Diothus. It will eat and kill everyone you know. Oh, no. Didn't you mention innocent people will die? Oh, poor me. If only I had a queen to help me make better decisions.
Well, that settles it. Your fiancé sounds charming, and we simply must visit him.
And when we click onto one of these missions here, as you can see, it has the name Luna Forest, the chapter, and a little brief lore-esque story tied into it. What's nice is the fact that they have the casual, normal, and veteran. Veteran is going to increase damage received and increase enemy health. Normal increases the time score penalty, which ties into the combat, as the combat is a little bit tricky to explain, but we will get there. So let us go into the battle and show you the interface and exactly what's happening. Now this is pretty much your basic interface. As we've already gone over all the special abilities, these are your basic attack. You can have your standard attack, and you have your special attacks down here. Now, this is important. You have the availability to rest, and if we look at the bottom right corner, you have each of the character's name, so you can tell which turn it is, the health points, and the energy points. As we've said before, the energy points are what allows you to cast these abilities. Very simplistic, no issues there. Rest will give up your turn, and in trade, you'll get 3 energy points back. Same thing with the items. You have the availability to use an item in turn of your action, so you can't do anything else if you're going to use an ability. And here you have Troll, which is sort of a taunt-esque manifest for a turn. It kind of says, hey, F you, come get me, I'm not afraid of you, type deal. And it's the same category over here, as you can see on the left side, the enemy's health, and next to the name will be where the debuffs or buffs that the character has. So let's begin with a standard attack, and you have the availability to scroll over which monster you want to select. And as we do so, you'll be able to tell the buffs or standard abilities of that creature. When attacked by melee, character receives 50% of the damage, so range is going to be more powerful against him. The weapon status of the game and how you attack comes down to a line drawing mechanic. Now you have a base arrow and you have a ghost outline arrow. When you draw your line across these 2 arrows, you will be doing damage. The better you do it in, whether it be flawless or epic, will determine how much damage you do. During these attacks, in the middle of the screen at the top of the page, if you haven't noticed yet, there is the attack bar and a timer bar. If you take too long in between attacking because you missed a line through draw and you're trying to get back, you're going to run out of time and you're not going to be able to do it, what you need to do to kill the enemy. I mean, it's that simple. Now, I am doing different types of attacks that really aren't needed on this mission for my level, but it is important to be able to show you the different animational qualities in the game actually have a pretty good synchronicity because it ties the combat together in a sense of power. Yeah, the archer may get a little repetitive because their main one attack, but it's just so powerful you can't pass it up. Now there are different types of enemies as well, and that's what's important. You do have not only a difference in the enemies you face, but also the abilities you face. Now we've seen some of the basic attack abilities from 2 of the characters, but if I want to do Shield of Courage and I click on that, it changes the type of line draw motion. So each of these abilities are slightly different in how you interact with them. The trick is really not trying to rush through, but get it just right so you can get that flawless combination and do as much damage as possible. This also goes into the fact of defending. When you defend an opponent, they will attack as well. And the better you do during the defense portion of a game while you're fighting against monsters will make a severe difference in your survivability during combat. Because if you are able to survive and take a flawless defense posture, you'll take less damage. And that is very important during a larger or even boss battle. So it does come down somewhat to understanding and timing-esque fashion. but the animation quality of the game, where you're fighting through these different enemies, make it actually interesting. Now you do have the option to use Troll, and we'll go into that in a moment here after we attack the standard one. Pretty simplistic. So if I do nothing, as you can see, the attack will fail, and I will do 0 damage. So it's pretty simple there. This can be a strategy that you may want to use in some battles if the enemy, say, has reflective damage and you know your first attack already killed them. Well, there's no point doing more damage because then that extra damage that you're doing to an already dead person is just going to come back and kill you. So when we hit Troll, yeah, it's a bit weird, but that's what you got. So as you can see, we just did Troll there, and it's left a debuff on him. The next attack does 20% damage and can only target Leon. So they're going to hit Leon for 20% more damage during the next attack. It's sort of the esque of a taunt, which is kind of very important, seeing how Alice is very weak. And because she's so weak, she does have a habit of getting killed rather fast. Now, as you can see, we just used the mana potion there, or the food, and it doesn't come just to that. It also comes into the fact of what they say, which does help propel a sense of, well, that was weird. So at the end of the day, what the game does, it actually does pretty well, as you can see. There is a level of comfort you have to get into to begin with when it comes to the combat system itself. The artistic style of the game may be a little unique or odd at times, but it's backed up with a good enough story and comedic undertone in the what is going on type sense, or wow, that was weird, but it gets by just fine. It may not be that long, as I beat the game in 3 hours, but then again, they're only asking about $5 to $7, and there is always sales or wish lists if that seems a bit excessive for you. Now, there is replayability value to a point within the game. You do have a large variable of missions, yes, and it does come down to a star system if you want to try to max out all the stars. And there are plenty of achievements, so it has certain incentives to tie in some people, but not everybody. But like I said, in between the combat, the fluidity of the combat, the line draw mechanic, it's important to note but I've never felt cheated by the game. I didn't feel as if my time was being wasted, or that something wasn't going appropriately as it should have been. I wasn't frustrated by the game at all in any regard or sense. I actually enjoyed the time I played into it, and it's odd but nice to see a game that's not afraid to kind of stand out and be like, yeah, we're different and we're weird, but we have things about us which are actually entertaining. The combat system was fair. The story was good, and I can easily recommend it if this sort of game looks appealing to you. So thank you everybody for listening and watching. I've been SocioPsycho, and I'll see you next time.